Hello, and welcome to today's segment. I'm author B.L. Fowler. Surprisingly, the history concerning human existence on Earth has always stirred debate. So much, many societies have cultivated ideologies based on philosophies developed by Confucius, Plato, Aristotle, Marx, and even Darwin. But what does each of these idols have in common? To some, they share a belief that empowered millions to sow and seal. To others, historical events were cultivated, and even lecturers emulate those dictators. However, despite the intellectual abilities these innovators instituted, religion has always been a driving force to be reckoned with. As a result, countless debates have erupted, causing many to become entangled in Charlotte's Web. Yet what I found so shocking is how much each of the philosophers mentioned ideology coincides with biblical doctrine. In fact, much of what I've researched has uncovered a significant amount of data validating many of the scriptures. This is why I felt compelled to invest time and energy in gaining clarity on my religious teaching and traditional beliefs. In fact, if you think about it, most of us structure our ethical foundation on religion, philosophies, experience, and/or the ideology of someone we most admire. Take, for instance, recently while talking with a neighbor, she kindly expressed it was inappropriate for a young lady to wear a short skirt to church. However, she wasn't explicit on whether or not the young lady wore stockings or not. Yet somewhere in this person's past, it was instilled this was an inappropriate way of dressing. But does it really matter how a person dresses when they go to church? After all, everyone should be welcome in the church with open arms and unconditional love. Yet when I discovered Ecclesiastes 8:11, which instructs, because sentence against an evil work is not executed speedily, therefore the heart of the sons of men is fully set in them to do evil. Then Ecclesiastes 9:5, which instructs, for the living know they shall die, but the dead know nothing any longer, neither have they any more reward, for the memory of them is forgotten. That's when I finally discovered one of the fatalities facing many religious followers. In fact, even Ecclesiastes 9:10 instructs, whatsoever thy hand findeth to do, do it with thy might. For there is no work, nor device, nor knowledge, nor wisdom in the grave, whither thou goest. Nevertheless, after reading these few scriptures, I began to evaluate everything I'd been taught about what is ethical. So much I couldn't help rethinking how unimportant it is to waste time trying to unravel the philosophies that help inflict my personal, mental, and emotional bondage. Then I recalled Colossians 2:6, which teaches, beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy, and vain deceit, after the tradition of men, after the rudiments of the world, and not after Christ. After all, embellishing countless philosophies from one intellectual to another eventually leads one into entanglement. As a result, illnesses begin to manifest and control our heart and mind. And even when we assume we have gained the empowerment to overcome one obstacle, there is always another that follows. But there is one ingredient that helps us overcome all things, and that ingredient is faith. Ideally, faith ignites a drive within our soul that spearheads us towards an infinite self-fulfillment. In fact, I cannot help but recall an experience I had concerning the discovery of the importance of faith. Like many youth, I too was faced with great challenges, but my challenge was learning how to deal with same-sex attraction. And like most children who are faced with this dilemma, I felt I was alone and isolated with this issue. Therefore, I refrained from disclosing my interests with my older sibling and even my parents. As a result, I continued to try and fit in. In fact, I dated females even though I was interested in males. Yet as I grew older and learned what this feeling and attraction was classified in compliance with society's ideology, I also had to learn the taboos associated with possessing such interests. Therefore, I remained entangled with a dictatorship based on the philosophies of someone else's train of thought. But once I grew older and attained clarity on my feelings and how to control my emotions, I discovered the key component I was missing all the time was an inability to have faith in God. After all, God is love. No matter our gender, race, age, creed, or sexual orientation, God's love is always unconditional. However, today's teen seems to lack clarity on the importance of faith and knowing God. However, the press is filled with stories on a growing number of teen suicides. In fact, sadly, every day a teen commits suicide based on the inability to overcome negative ideologies structured around their immediate environment. And unfortunately, even religion cannot prevent suicide. Therefore, faith must be a driving force in helping society overcome its lack of insecurities. In addition, it's important to begin incorporating innovative concepts to encourage today's youth to gain an interest in knowing the history enveloped within the Scripture. I'm not just talking about forcing teens to pick up today's Revised Bible that attempts to convey readability. I'm referring to the historical Bible printed in the 60s, 50s, and 40s. In fact, even when adults acquire one of those rewards and research the instruction enveloped within these archives and compare it to today's revised editions, they too find the Scripture has already conveyed a message that philosophers would rise and twist the Scripture unto their own destruction and lead people away from the faith. Take 1 Timothy 4:1 and 2 for instance. Now the Spirit speaketh expressly, that in later times some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils, speaking lies of hypocrisy, having their conscience seared with a hot iron. Of course, time and again, history continues to prove this to be true. After all, many have turned away from the richness of the Scripture and acquired a liberty in the philosophies developed by historians. Therefore, today, we see a different world. No longer do we see a world united on religious beliefs. This is why it's important to know the history of our great country. Even more, it's important to understand the history of our religious beliefs. In knowing the history, we gain clarity, and with clarity comes inner peace, which the world cannot destroy, because with this treasure of benevolence harvests a detachment to those traditions teach that hold us bondage. I guess this is why Paul conveys so eloquently, the harvest of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, fidelity, gentleness, and self-control. After all, when we impede upon the beliefs of others based on philosophy, not only are we cultivating the outcome of their lives, we cultivate the outcome of our own. This is why Romans 2:1 teaches, Therefore thou art an excusable, O man, whosoever thou art that judgest. For wherein thou judgest another, thou condemnest thyself. For thou that judgest doest the same things. Moreover, Matthew 22:29 instructs, Ye err not knowing the Scripture. Therefore, despite the inclusion of terms such as thee and thou, the overall message is love, faith, and belief. Nevertheless, time is of the essence. Therefore, I must bring this segment to a close. But like always, it is a pleasure spending these brief moments of understanding with you. I'm Arthur B.O. Fowler, and I'd like to thank each and every one of you for stopping by and sharing a brief moment with me. God bless you and your families. Please remember to stay safe and keep your faith.